recognizing a winning innovation idea when you see one. This is a very interesting challenge. What we're going to do is look at the buyer utility map. This is an explanation of a winning business idea that's based on a Harvard Business Review article called Knowing a Winning Business Idea When You See One. And so we're going to build an explanation of how you see a winning innovation idea that follows the buyer utility map. It's the buyer experience that you have when you're buying a product or a service and how you see that experience for yourself. So what is the buyer's experience cycle? So it's purchase, it's delivery, it's use, there's some kind of supplement that is associated with it. There's maybe a maintenance aspect to it, and then ultimately you dispose of it. And so if you think about this cycle and think about the steps that you go through when you buy something, this is a set of experiences that has a lot to do with how you feel about and how you accept an innovative idea that has durability and it has staying power in a product or service that you're using or buying. So there are 6 what we call utility considerations that customers think about when they're buying. One is the environmental friendliness of the place that you're actually making the purchase in. Sometimes it's online. It might be a friendly website, or it might be a friendly store. It might be a sense of fun or image in the purchase. The risk that might be associated with the purchase. Is it a lot of money? Do you know whether it's a reliable product or service? How convenient is it? The simplicity of the transaction. Sometimes if it's only cash, it's simple. Is it a credit card? You swipe a credit card. Is it simple? And then finally, does the product or the service produce value for you? So those are the things that you consider. Those are what we call utility considerations that you think about when you're buying or using a product or an innovation. So this is the buyer utility map. It's a little hard to read, but it's a matrix. This is right out of the article from the Harvard Business Review. And across the top are the 6 stages of the buyer experience that we just talked about. And on the left-hand side are the ways in which you consider how that buyer experience works for you. And so it's just it's a framework for how you think about this. And so we're going to walk through each one of those elements. So for stage 1 of the buyer experience, which is purchase, you have all these 6 utility levers, and in the purchase, is it environmentally friendly? Is it fun? Is it risky? Is there convenience? Is there simplicity? And does this lead to an easy way in which to make the purchase? Is it productive for you? And so there are a number of concerns associated with that. You might say, well, does it matter? How long does it take to find the product or the service that you need? Is it easy? Is the place of purchase attractive and accessible? Is it in some corner of the city that you don't want to go in, or is it online and can you get to it very, very quickly and easily? How secure is the transaction environment that you're in? Are you worried about having your hand on your wallet when you go into this place, or is it something you have high trust in? And how rapidly and easily can you make a purchase? Do you have to stand in line in order to buy something? Or is it something that you can walk right up and make your purchase and be in and out of there? So these are all part of the buyer experience of the step, the first stage, which is the purchase stage. So then there is the purchasing experience. So consider the best or worst purchase experience that you've had this year. And just ask yourself, could some form of innovation have made it better? And so what you want to do is reflect on that part of the experience, the purchase experience, and say, is there an innovation opportunity? Is there something that you've experienced that tells you that something needs to be fixed, something needs to be made better? So stage 2 of the buyer experience is what we call delivery. Sometimes you take things home yourself and sometimes you don't. But you might ask, how long did it take to get your product delivered? And in each of the levers, you might say the same thing. Was it friendly? Was it fun? Was there risk involved? Was it convenient? Was it simple? Did it produce value for you? And you might ask yourself, how difficult is it to unpack and install this new product? If you've ever bought something that has been wrapped in these clamshell plastic packages, you know what I'm talking about. This is something that's very difficult to get into. It's there for a purpose. It's there for theft prevention, but it also is very, very difficult to open. So there's a packaging and a delivery aspect to that. So in the delivery experience, you might ask yourself, has the packaging or product you purchased ever been so difficult to open that it discouraged you from buying another product of the same type? So sometimes that experience is one that affects how you're going to buy a future product from that organization. And you might ask yourself, are there some better ways, some innovative ways to improve the packaging and delivery experience? And so that's an innovation opportunity in and of itself. So stage 3 of the buyer experience is where you actually use the product or service. And here again, each one of the 6 utility levers apply. And you may ask yourself, does the product require training or expert assistance to use it? Have you ever bought something that had really a small owner's manual, and it had it in 6 different languages, and you had a hard time figuring out which language or where English language was, or whatever your favorite language was, to interpret that? And sometimes the owner's manuals aren't very good. And is the product easy to store when it's not in use? Sometimes you get things in a big box, and there's no real convenient place to put it in your home or your apartment. And you might ask yourself, how effective are the product's features and functions? That's the fundamental thing that we look at. If it's a new television set, or it's a speaker system, or it's a personal computer, all of these things really kind of play in. So for the use experience, you might ask yourself, what's an example of a product you bought that has required a lot of instruction or training before it became useful to you? In other words, you had to take what amounts to a self-taught training course before you could actually use that product. How easy is it to use? So you could then say, what form of innovation would improve your ability to use this product? Ultimately, products that require a lot of self-directed training are not going to sell very well and not be very appealing in the marketplace. And so that's an innovation opportunity. If you can find a way to self-direct a user or a customer to be able to effectively use a product or a service, that would be very helpful. So stage 4 of the buyer experience is what we would call supplements. These are things that are value-added, sometimes aftermarket products that help make the product or the service work better. And so the concern that you have is, do you really need to have these things? An example that I experienced recently was a humidifier in the dry winter weather, a house humidifier. What I found is that there were some humidifiers that required extra filters, that required filter papers, that required all kinds of add-ons that, yes, made them better, but then I would have had to go to the store and get more and more of these things all through the winter. And so that's another concern. If the product or the service can be self-contained, and it doesn't cost additional money, additional effort after you bought it, then maybe it meets the customer productivity aspect. So for supplements, that experience that you have, what are some examples of product types that have aftermarket potential? Those that can supplement other products that are already on the market. In other words, something that improves some product that you already have but makes it better. And could these supplemental products or services be more innovative to actually improve the buyer experience? So stage 5 of the buyer experience is maintenance. And all 6 of these buyer utility levers apply again. But some of the key concerns are, does the product require external or continuous maintenance? In other words, you get it, but do you have to have it serviced regularly? Of course, automobiles are a classic example of this. I think they're getting better. But a number of years ago, you would have to take in your automobile regularly and frequently, and there would be a lot of maintenance. Now, automobiles are actually overcoming that. But that is part of the buyer experience. If you buy a service or a product, you don't want to have a requirement that you're going to have to spend a lot of time and effort and energy to maintain and upgrade the product. So a concern that you might have around the maintenance experience is thinking about whether you can identify a product that requires so much maintenance that it would generate enough demand for fixing, and that the maintenance would be able to build another support service around that demand. So this is an innovation opportunity. Sometimes good products require a lot of maintenance, but they also suggest that there may be an innovation opportunity for something that could reduce that level of maintenance. So you might ask yourself, what form of innovation would make product maintenance easier and more efficient? Because most products require some level of maintenance. So finally, stage 6 of the buyer experience is what we call disposal. This is where you ultimately get rid of the product. You've used it and you're ready to recycle it, or you sell it, or you throw it away. And so in the world of sustainability, we want to ask, does the product create waste? And is it easy to recycle? Can there be something done with it? Automobiles now get taken to junkyards and get crushed, and in some ways get recycled and remelted, but that's still a fairly difficult thing. And what we're finding is that personal computers are actually in some ways kind of toxic to dispose of. And so that's a challenge. So within the experience, you might say, is it really easy to get rid of the product that you have? Is it really easy to recycle it? Not just conveniently, but are there damages to the environment? So you want to ask those kinds of questions. And indeed, companies are becoming more and more aware and concerned about these kinds of issues. So thinking about the disposal experience, can you think of a product that can't be recycled or that's very costly to be recycled? And ask yourself whether that might be an opportunity for some kind of innovative solution. And who would pay for that? Would the company pay for that? Would it be part of the price of the sales price of the product when a consumer bought it? So all of these are considerations. So in summary, when we think about the buyer experience, and what we want to do is recognize that problems of overcoming the buyer utility map can actually be opportunity areas. And they can reveal innovation opportunities that are really seem to be problems, but they need to be solved. And sorting out which ones are the most feasible can lead to an improved buyer experience and greater value for customers. So firms that have customers that can be better served are actually in line for service innovations, whereas products that they have that can be improved are in line for product innovations.